High in the mountains of northern India, there is a small lake hidden in a quiet valley. It's called the Rupkund Lake. The lake is not big, just about 40 meters across and only 3 meters deep, and at first glance, it doesn't look special at all. But if you walk to its edge and look into the clear water, you'll see something shocking. Hundreds of human skeletons lying just below the surface. The skeletons were first discovered in 1942 by a forest ranger working for the British, who ruled India at the time. It must have been terrifying for him to find so many human bones scattered in and around a small lake, over 5,000 meters above sea level, far away from any village. At first, the British thought the skeletons might belong to soldiers, maybe even Japanese soldiers from World War II. But when experts studied the bones, they realized they were much older, at least 500 years old. The cold weather and dry air in the mountains had preserved some of the flesh and hair on the bodies, which made them seem fresher than they really were. For decades, people came up with many theories. Some thought these people did it to themselves, others believed there was a big battle there, and some thought the people had frozen to death or died from an illness. But none of these ideas fully explained what happened. In the early 2000s, a team from National Geographic went to study the lake. They found that many of the skulls had strange injuries, cracks and dents, but no wounds that looked like sword cuts or arrows. Also, there were women and children among the dead, and only one weapon, an iron spearhead, was found. Instead of weapons, they discovered items like bangles, rings, wooden umbrellas, and leather shoes. This didn't seem like a group of soldiers at all. They then learned that this lake lies along the path of a very old and dangerous religious pilgrimage called the Nanda Devi Raj Jat. Pilgrims still carry similar bangles and umbrellas today, and some even use a strap called a tump line across their foreheads to carry heavy loads, which can leave grooves in the skull like the ones found at Rupkund. So that explained why they were in the mountains, but not how they died. The answer came from the injuries on their heads. The researchers figured out that these people were likely killed by a massive hailstorm. The lake is in an open area with no trees or shelter, so when hailstones the size of cricket balls fell from the sky, the pilgrims had nowhere to hide. Even more amazing, a local legend tells a story very much like this. According to the legend, a king and queen angered a goddess by bringing dancers and entertainment on a sacred pilgrimage. The goddess punished them and their group by striking them with hailstones hard as iron as they crossed the mountains. Researchers dated the bones more accurately and found that they were not all from the same time. The oldest bones were over 1,000 years older than the newest ones. They also found that some of the skeletons belonged to people from the Mediterranean region, perhaps even from Crete, and not just locals from India. This was very strange because there are no records of such a group of Mediterranean people traveling to this remote part of India. Some people have suggested that these foreign visitors may have been killed by thieves who used to rob and murder travelers in India during colonial times. But there is no real proof of that either. So even today, Rupkund Lake remains a mystery. While the story of a deadly hailstorm probably explains some of the deaths, it does not explain everything. Especially the people from faraway lands who died there at different times. Karen Wetterhahn, lab photo, 1996, Dartmouth College. A respected chemist, Karen is seen working in the lab weeks before 2 drops of dimethylmercury seeped through her gloves. She didn't realize she was poisoned until symptoms appeared, but by then it was already too late. Her death changed lab safety protocols worldwide. These 2 photos of Lisa Gurrieri and Brandon Rumbaugh looks happy, just a young couple in love, camping under the stars, but just hours later they were murdered, and these became their final photos ever taken. Lisa Gurrieri and Brandon Rumbaugh were a young couple from Arizona who were deeply in love. Lisa was born on July 14, 1984. She was cheerful, outgoing, and full of life. She graduated from Mesa High School and was studying business at Mesa Community College. She dreamed of becoming a wedding planner. She also sang in the church choir and worked at a local company. People who knew Lisa said she always smiled, greeted everyone, and brightened their day. Her father passed away when she was young, so her uncle helped raise her, and he loved her like his own daughter. Brandon was born on May 7, 1983. He was tall, funny, and loved making others laugh. He graduated from high school in 2001, joined the U.S. Marine Reserves, and attended Arizona State University. He worked as a personal trainer at a gym and dreamed of opening his own fitness center. He also loved playing drums in a band, painting, and sculpting. Lisa and Brandon had a happy, loving relationship. They lived together in Scottsdale and planned to marry someday. Some say they may have just gotten engaged before their deaths. In October 2003, the couple wanted to celebrate their first anniversary in a special way. They thought about going to Disneyland but decided it was too expensive. Instead, they planned a camping trip to Bumblebee, a quiet, popular camping area north of Phoenix. Lisa had never been camping before, but she was excited to spend time with Brandon under the stars. They borrowed Lisa's mother's white pickup truck and left for the trip on Friday, October 17, 2003. Brandon hugged his mom goodbye, and Lisa asked her mom not to tell her uncle where they were going, knowing he would worry. The next day, when they didn't return home as promised, their families became worried. Brandon missed work, which was unusual for him. Friends and family started searching campsites and soon found the couple's truck parked at Bumblebee. To their horror, they found Lisa and Brandon dead in the back of the truck, still in their sleeping bags. Both had been shot in the head several times with a small caliber gun. Police quickly ruled out that they did it to themselves and said there were no signs of robbery, assault, or drugs. Nobody could think of anyone who would want to hurt them. The police collected evidence from the scene. They found a disposable camera about 100 feet away from the truck. Photos on the camera showed Lisa and Brandon looking happy in the truck that night. But the last photo on the roll was strange. It was a blurry picture of a light fixture in a building, though no one knew where it was taken. Police also noted that the video camera the couple had brought was missing. Only the empty camera case was left behind. Investigators explored two main theories. The first theory was that someone they knew, perhaps a jealous friend, killed them. Lisa's uncle suspected one of her friends, who supposedly had strong feelings for her. This friend was also part of the search party that found the bodies, and shortly after the murders, he moved far away and left his house spotless. He passed a polygraph test at the time, but newer detectives say they are still interested in questioning him again. The second theory is that the murders were random. Some believe it was a robbery gone wrong. Perhaps someone tried to steal the truck, saw the couple sleeping, and panicked. This theory is supported by a similar crime that happened 6 months later nearby, where two men were shot and their truck stolen. However, in Lisa and Brandon's case, the truck was not stolen, which makes this theory less certain. Some think the killer may have even recorded the murders, as the missing video camera has never been found. Years later, a volunteer named Deborah West reviewed the case but did not find any solid evidence. She believes the couple didn't know their killer and that it may have been a random attack. Sadly, after more than 18 years, the murders of Lisa Gurrieri and Brandon Rumbaugh remain unsolved. Their families still hope that one day the truth will come out. At first, this photo might look like some kind of strange torture, but it actually shows a patient getting an anti-freckle treatment in the 1930s. Even though it looks scary, the process was pretty simple. The eyes and mouth were covered to protect the person from harmful fumes, and then dry ice was applied to the skin to freeze and slough off the superficial layers of skin cells. Once you know what's happening, it doesn't seem as creepy. But without any explanation, it looks very unsettling. It also shows how much medicine has improved, because this method is no longer used today. It just looked like a regular old barrel, sitting out on a suburban street, but inside was something no one could have imagined, a secret that had been hidden for over 30 years. On September 2nd, 1999, Ronald Cohen and his family were moving out of their house at 67 Forest Drive in Jericho, Long Island. One of their final tasks before leaving was to remove a large oil barrel that was hidden in a crawl space under an addition to the home. This barrel had been there since Cohen had moved in. They pulled the barrel out of the basement and left it outside for sanitation workers to take away. But the workers left a note saying it was too heavy to move. It weighed about 345 pounds. Curious, Cohen decided to open the barrel to see what was inside so he could dispose of it himself. When he opened it, he was met with a terrible smell. Inside, he saw a hand and a woman's shoe sticking out of plastic pellets and green liquid. He immediately called the police. When investigators arrived, they found the body of a woman inside. The body was mummified because the barrel had been sealed tightly. The autopsy showed that she was between 25 and 30 years old, had died about 30 years earlier, and was either Caucasian or Hispanic. She was 9 months pregnant with a baby boy, and also had dental work, 2 gold crowns. That was not common in the United States, leading investigators to believe she may have come from South America. Along with the body, police found a damaged purse, a note, an address book, a plastic flower stem, some rings, and a locket that said, "To Patrice, love from Uncle Paul." The note and address book were too damaged to read, so they were sent to a lab for analysis. The Nassau County Homicide Squad began investigating past owners of the house. The house had been built in 1957 and had 4 owners before Cohen. All the previous owners said the barrel was already there when they moved in and claimed they didn't know what was inside. Howard Elkins, who owned the house in the 1960s, told reporters he didn't remember much about the crawl space where the barrel was found and couldn't remember the name of the contractor who built the addition. He also said the only other people who would have had access to the house back then were gardeners and maids. Police traced the serial number on the barrel to a chemical company in New Jersey. The barrel had been made in March 1963 and used to hold paint and dyes. The green chemical inside was a dye often used in fake plants, and the plastic pellets matched materials used to make artificial flowers. Police discovered that Elkins had owned part of a company called Melrose Plastics, which made fake flowers and plants. He sold the company in 1972 and moved to Florida. Police then got an anonymous tip. The caller said that Elkins had been having an affair with a Hispanic woman who worked at Melrose Plastics and suggested she might be the woman in the barrel. On September 9th, detectives went to Florida to question Elkins, now 71 years old and living in a retirement home. He admitted he had been involved with a woman at Melrose, but couldn't remember her name or details. When asked to give a DNA sample to test if he was the father of the baby, he refused and asked police to leave so he could talk to his wife. The next day, Elkins went missing. His son later found him dead in the garage of a neighbor's house. He did it to himself. DNA testing later confirmed with 99.9% certainty that Elkins was the father of the baby. But police still didn't know who the woman was. Forensic scientists managed to recover a few names and numbers from the damaged address book. Most were no longer correct, except for one, Kathy Andrade. When police contacted her, she immediately identified the woman as her best friend, Reina Angelica Marroquin. Reina had moved from El Salvador to New York in 1966 after her marriage ended. She lived in a Catholic home for single women, worked at Melrose Plastics, and studied fashion and English. She dreamed of becoming successful. Kathy, her English teacher, said Reina was full of life, but started acting strangely when she became pregnant. Reina said the baby's father was a married man with children who had promised to marry her but seemed to change his mind. In desperation, Reina called the man's wife to confess. Soon after, she called Kathy, scared, saying the man threatened to kill her. Kathy rushed to Reina's apartment but found it empty, with food still warm on the stove and her winter clothes left behind. Police at the time told Kathy to wait a week, assuming Reina had run off. It is believed that Elkins lured Reina to the factory, killed her, and hid her body in the barrel, planning to sink it in the ocean. But it was too heavy to move, so he left it in the crawl space. Decades later, reporter Oscar Corral helped find Reina's family in El Salvador. Her mother was 95 when she finally learned what happened to her daughter. Reina's body was flown home and buried next to her mother, who died a month later. On the note that was sent to a lab for analysis earlier, forensic scientists could finally read the words, "Don't be mad, I told the truth." Gas stroller. This photo was taken in England during World War II. It shows a woman pushing her baby in a gas-proof stroller to protect the child from breathing in dangerous gas. Even though it looks strange and uncomfortable today, these special carriages were not that rare back then. They were mostly used by richer families who could afford to buy them. Moments before he killed Rhys Jones in 2007, Sean Mercer was caught on CCTV riding his bicycle. Rhys Milford Jones was an 11-year-old boy who lived in Croxteth Park, Liverpool, with his mum Melanie, his dad Stephen, and his older brother Owen. The family had always lived in the same small, friendly community. Croxteth Park had about 3,000 houses, a few shops, a church, a medical center, and a pub called the Fir Tree, which was at the center of the estate. People there knew each other and felt safe. Rhys was a happy, lively boy who loved football more than anything else. He supported Everton and his bedroom was full of Everton shirts and posters. He also played for Fir Tree Boys Football Club. His teachers thought he was very talented and could have a great future in football. On the evening of August 22, 2007, Rhys had football practice. He was also excited because England was playing Germany on TV later that night. Before leaving for practice, he kissed his mum goodbye and walked out. But then he came running back because he had forgotten the £5 fee. His mum laughed and decided to drive him there herself. When he got out of the car, he smiled and said, "See you, Mum. Love you." Those were the last words he ever said to her. Rhys enjoyed his training that evening. He laughed with his friends and even scored a penalty. When it ended, he decided to walk home on his own. The weather was warm and it was about 7 p.m. As he walked through the car park of the Fir Tree pub, a boy on a silver mountain bike came towards him. The boy was wearing a hoodie, pulled out a revolver, and fired 3 times. 2 bullets missed, but one hit Rhys in the back near his shoulder blade and passed through his neck. At first, people thought he had tripped and fallen, but then they saw the blood. A woman ran to help him and pressed on his wound while someone else called an ambulance. At home, Melanie and Stephen were waiting for Rhys when one of his coaches came to tell them what had happened. Melanie ran to her son, who was lying on the ground, and whispered to him that he would be okay. Paramedics worked hard to save him, but at 8:46 p.m., Rhys was pronounced dead at Alderhay Children's Hospital. The next day, the whole country was shocked. Everton fans at Goodison Park held a minute of applause for him, and people all over Liverpool paid tribute. Money was raised to build a community centre in his memory. But behind the sadness, the police began their investigation. They quickly realized this was not a random attack. For years, 2 gangs had been fighting in the area: the Croxteth Crew, or Crocky Crew, and the Strand Gang from nearby Norris Green. Their feud had already caused violence and even a murder the year before. Rhys had nothing to do with any of this. There were no fingerprints or bullet casings. Then the police heard the name Sean Mercer. He was 16 from Croxteth and already known to police. He had been stopped and searched many times and had an ASBO for causing trouble. 3 days later, police arrested Sean and 2 of his friends, Dean Kelly and James Yates, who were also in the gang. But none of them spoke to the police. Witnesses would not pick Sean out of a lineup, and his mum even gave him an alibi. They were released. The police didn't give up. They listened to phone calls and even placed secret recording devices in gang members' homes. They heard talk of destroying evidence, but still had no strong proof. Then a boy known as Boy M spoke to them. He said Sean and the others came to his house just minutes after the shooting. This showed Sean had lied about where he was. Later, police found a silver bike frame dumped in Kirkby. Only 3 bikes of that kind had been sold in the UK that year, and one belonged to Sean. His DNA was on it, and CCTV confirmed it was the bike used. Another breakthrough came when police searched the house of Boy X and found an old revolver and bullets. At first, they thought it was the wrong gun, but later tests showed that the gun fired bullets that tumbled in the air, causing a wound like Rhys's. Boy X also admitted that Sean gave him the gun, wrapped in paper, right after the shooting. Police promised to protect Boy X and not charge him if he testified. This was the first time in the UK that a witness was kept secret like this. Now police had the bike, the gun, DNA, CCTV, phone records, and 2 witnesses who said Sean was there and hid the weapon. In April 2008, police arrested 14 people. Sean Mercer was charged with murder, and others were charged with helping him cover it up. The trial began in October 2008 and lasted 3 months. Sean and his friends laughed and joked in court, while Rhys's parents sat just a few feet away, heartbroken. The court heard how Sean had been told earlier that day to show loyalty to the gang. When he heard rival gang members were at the pub car park, he cycled there, fired at them, missed, and hit Rhys instead. Then he went to Boy M's house, where his clothes were burned, his body was washed with petrol, and the bike was hidden. On December 16, 2008, Sean Mercer was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life, with at least 22 years before he could apply for parole. Others got shorter sentences for helping him. Sean's mother and James Yates's parents were also jailed for lying to police and hiding evidence. Less than a year later, Sean stabbed another inmate in prison. He remains in jail to this day. Rhys was just an innocent boy who loved football, his family, and life. He was caught in the middle of a pointless gang fight he had nothing to do with. This photo shows a child's hand reaching out from a cell in a mental institution. Not much is known about the picture, but it became very well known because it showed how badly children were treated in these places. Kids in mental institutions were often treated just as poorly as the adults. Solitary confinement was a common punishment for children who misbehaved, and this photo is said to be proof of that. This looks like just another cozy kid room, but on one summer night in January 1976, an 8-year-old girl simply vanished from her bed. No broken windows, no forced entry, just an empty room and a family waking up to heart-stopping silence. On that warm night in January 1976 in the quiet town of Beaumaris, Victoria, Australia, the Worledge family went to bed like any other night. 8-year-old Eloise, her 6-year-old sister Anna, and her 4-year-old brother Blake all went to their rooms and fell asleep. Their parents, Lindsay and Patsy, had been having problems in their marriage for a long time. They argued often and had both been seeing other people. Even though they lived in a nice house near the ocean, things at home were tense. By January, they had decided to separate. But something far worse than divorce happened. On the morning of January 13th, little Blake woke up just before 7:30 a.m. and went into his parents' room. He told them that Eloise was not in her bed. The parents quickly searched the house but could not find her anywhere. Her room showed no signs of a struggle, and nothing seemed broken or disturbed. When Blake told his parents what he had heard the night before, they called the police right away. Blake said he had heard noises in the house. He described hearing robbers and said he was too scared to call out because he thought they might take him too. He also mentioned hearing footsteps that sounded like someone walking on the seagrass rug in Eloise's room. Investigators believed that Eloise might have willingly gotten out of bed and left with someone she knew. The front door had been left unlocked, so it was possible she walked out with them. But there was also the possibility that a stranger came into the house and kidnapped her. Neighbors reported strange things that night. One neighbor heard a car speeding down the street around 2 a.m. Another saw a green Holden station wagon parked near the Worledge home. A woman noticed a young man walking along the fence line, making her so uneasy that she crossed the street to avoid him. Another neighbor saw a man jump over the fence into the yard. Around 2 a.m., two different neighbors reported hearing a child crying and a car door slamming. Inside Eloise's room, police found small pieces of tree bark on the floor and a hole cut in the window screen. But they later found that the hole was cut from the inside and was too small for anyone to climb through. Because of the parents' troubled marriage, police also looked closely at Lindsay and Patsy as suspects. Patsy even told police that she believed Lindsay might have taken Eloise to hurt her, but Lindsay denied having anything to do with it. That night, he had gone to bed after both Patsy and Eloise. He admitted he left the front door unlocked because he didn't realize it had not been closed. At about 4:45 a.m., Patsy woke up and saw that the hallway light, which was usually left on for the children, had been turned off. By then, Eloise was likely already gone. The search for Eloise became one of the largest missing person investigations in Victoria's history. A $10,000 reward was offered, but no trace of her was ever found. The green Holden station wagon and the strange man seen by neighbors also led nowhere. In 2001, cold case detectives reopened the investigation, but again found no new evidence. In 2002, Lindsay took a lie detector test, but the results were inconclusive. He later said the family had accepted long ago that Eloise's disappearance was a mystery that might never be solved. Both Lindsay and Patsy said they had made peace with not knowing the truth. Lindsay explained that he cared deeply for his children, but was not the kind of person to show his emotions openly. After divorcing Patsy, he remarried and lived a quiet life, but his name was always tied to the case, as both a grieving father and a possible suspect. He died in 2017, never knowing what really happened to his daughter. The coroner later said that Eloise was a shy girl who would not have left the house with a stranger. Neighbors' reports of hearing a child cry and a car door slam at 2 a.m. seemed very important, but police at the time did not follow up strongly on these clues. More than 40 years later, Eloise's disappearance remains one of Australia's most haunting mysteries. She is still deeply loved and missed by her family, who never got the chance to see her grow up. The pain of not knowing what happened to her still lingers, as the question remains unanswered. Who took Eloise and why? These are Halloween costumes from the early 1900s, and they were most likely homemade. Back then, outfits like these were actually very common, and there are many old photos showing similar costumes. Since Halloween costumes are meant to be scary, it's safe to say these ones did a really good job of frightening people. In this photo, Savannah Greywind smiles, 8 months pregnant, unaware that she would soon be murdered and her baby taken from her in the most horrifying way. In August 2017, two people were kayaking on the Red River in North Dakota. As they paddled, they saw something strange caught on a log in the water. When they got closer, they realized it was the body of a young woman. This terrible discovery shocked the whole state and uncovered a very sad and cruel story. The woman was Savannah LaFontaine Greywind. Savannah was just 22 years old and had so much to look forward to. She was kind and caring, and everyone who knew her loved her. That year she had started working as a nursing assistant and planned to become a specialist in elder care one day. She was also moving in with her boyfriend of 7 years, Ashton, and they were expecting their first baby, a little girl. For the time being, Savannah still lived with her parents and brother in a basement apartment in Fargo. Even though they all lived together, she always texted and called them throughout the day to stay in touch. On August 19, 2017, her family knew exactly where she went because she told them. She went upstairs to help their neighbor, Brooke Cruz. Brooke was 38 years old and lived in the apartment above Savannah's family. Savannah had always been nice to everyone, but her family was a little worried about Brooke. They didn't know her very well, but they heard her fighting loudly with her boyfriend, William Hone. Their fights were so bad that Savannah's family could hear them through the ceiling, and once William was even arrested for hurting Brooke. On that day, Brooke asked Savannah if she could come upstairs and help her by trying on a dress she was sewing. Even though Savannah had turned down Brooke's invitations before, she said yes this time. Savannah was home alone when she went upstairs. She was 8 months pregnant, and it was hard for her to work or walk much because of her swollen feet. She even ordered pizza for lunch that day and planned to eat with her family, but the pizza was still untouched when her family came home. Her car, purse, and keys were all there, but she was gone. She had also stopped replying to their texts, which was unusual for her. She was supposed to drive her brother to work later, but never showed up. By 4 p.m., her mom, Norberta, was very worried. She went upstairs to ask Brooke if she had seen Savannah. Brooke claimed that Savannah had left around 2:45, but Norberta knew something was wrong. Savannah wouldn't have left without telling anyone, and she couldn't have walked far in her condition. Norberta called the police right away. Police came and searched Brooke's apartment more than once, but didn't find anything. The police kept investigating and soon learned from William's co-workers that he had been talking about a newborn baby at home. This was strange because during the searches, they hadn't seen any baby. The police got another search warrant and went back. This time, they found a healthy baby girl on Brooke's bed. Brooke and William were arrested right away. At first, Brooke told police that Savannah came over, broke her own water, gave birth in her apartment, and then left the baby with her. But DNA tests showed the baby was Savannah's, and she would never have just left her baby behind. On August 27th, 2 kayakers found Savannah's body in the Red River. She had been wrapped in plastic and duct tape. There were marks on her neck, and her stomach was open. It turned out that after Savannah went upstairs, she and Brooke argued in the bathroom. Brooke pushed her, and Savannah fell and hit her head. Then Brooke used a knife to take Savannah's baby from her. William came home and asked if Savannah was dead. When Brooke didn't answer, he strangled her to make sure she was. They hid Savannah's body in a closet, even while police searched the apartment. Later, they put her body in a dresser, dumped it in the river, and kept the baby, pretending it was theirs. In court, Brooke said she had lied to William earlier, telling him she was pregnant so he wouldn't leave her. When he found out she was lying, he told her to come up with a baby or else. That's when she decided to take Savannah's baby. Brooke was sentenced to life in prison without parole. William was sentenced to 20 years. Savannah's boyfriend, Ashton, was given custody of their baby girl, whom they had planned to name Hazley Joe. Savannah's tragic death led to a new law passed in 2021 called Savannah's Act, which helps Native American communities by improving how missing and murdered Indigenous women's cases are handled, so that what happened to Savannah hopefully never happens again. At first glance, the Roman slave collar looks like a simple metal band, maybe jewelry or a tool, but its true purpose is chilling. These collars were forcibly locked around the necks of enslaved people in ancient Rome, often inscribed with messages like, "If found, return to my master." They were used to prevent escape and assert ownership, turning human beings into property. At first glance, this looks like a happy family, a smiling young girl with her parents. But behind this photo was a terrifying secret. Andrea Bowman was born on June 23, 1974 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Her birth name was Alexis Miranda Badger, and her biological mother, Kathy, was only 17 at the time. Kathy had a very hard life. She left home young, worked as a bartender at 14, and even joined a traveling circus. At 16, she married a 19-year-old boy after a whirlwind romance, and soon got pregnant with Alexis. But the marriage didn't work, and Kathy moved back in with her mother in Virginia after Alexis was born. Kathy's mother was sick with cancer and already caring for other kids, so she didn't want to help with the baby. Kathy felt she couldn't care for Alexis properly, so she gave her up for adoption through a Catholic agency. Kathy hoped that Alexis would have a much better life with a good family. At 5 months old, Alexis was adopted by Dennis and Brenda Bowman. They renamed her Andrea and moved her to Michigan. But the life she ended up with was nothing like what Kathy had hoped for her daughter. Dennis Bowman seemed like a normal man to outsiders, but he was hiding who he really was. Before adopting Andrea, he already had a criminal record. In 1980, when Andrea was 6, he was charged with attempting to hurt and murder a 19-year-old girl. He had threatened the girl, but she escaped by running into traffic to stop a car. Dennis was caught and sent to prison but served less than 5 years. Andrea grew up shy and quiet, but classmates noticed she often seemed troubled. Sometimes she came to school with cuts and blood on her hands, and people started to wonder if she was being hurt at home. When Andrea was 14, she told a teacher she was afraid to go home because her father was hurting her. A social worker visited the house, but Dennis and Brenda denied it and claimed Andrea was just upset about learning she was adopted. Shockingly, despite Dennis's criminal past, no one looked deeper into it. Not long after that, in March 1989, Dennis called the police and reported Andrea missing. He claimed she had stolen money and left home to find her biological mother. The police treated it as a runaway case and didn't look into it properly. Brenda later made several calls to police claiming to have seen Andrea around town, but these were never confirmed. Over the years, the case went cold. Meanwhile, Dennis kept committing crimes. He stalked and broke into a woman's home in the late 1990s and was caught with stolen items, weapons, and other disturbing things. Yet he still got away with just a short sentence. In 2018, another murder helped solve Andrea's case. Back in 1980, a woman named Kathleen Doyle had been murdered in Virginia. DNA from her case was finally matched to Dennis Bowman in 2019. Police arrested him for that murder, and while in custody, Dennis confessed to killing Andrea as well. He said he and Andrea had gotten into a heated argument and he hit her, causing her to fall down the stairs and die. Police searched his property and found Andrea's remains buried in a shallow grave under cement in his backyard, over 30 years after she went missing. Dennis was charged with murder and other horrible stuff related to hurting Andrea. Kathy, Andrea's biological mother, was devastated to learn what had happened to her daughter. She had given her up to give her a better life, but instead, Andrea suffered for years and was killed by the man who was supposed to protect her. This case shows how badly the system failed Andrea, from allowing Dennis to adopt her despite his violent past, to ignoring her cries for help, to letting her case sit as a runaway for decades. The only person who kept fighting for Andrea was her biological mother, who never stopped searching for the truth. Wedding rings. This photo was taken in the 1940s. At first, it might look pretty normal, but it actually shows something very sad and upsetting. These are wedding rings that were taken from Jewish couples who were sent to concentration camps. Most of these husbands and wives were split up and never saw each other again. At first glance, this grainy surveillance image doesn't seem unusual. Just a lone figure with a bike on a quiet campus night. But what happened shortly after this moment would change everything for one university, one family, and one young woman with a promising future. This is the case of Haruka Weiser. She was a bright and talented young woman. She was only 18 years old and had just started her first year at the University of Texas in Austin. She was studying both theater and pre-med because she dreamed of being a doctor, but also loved dance and acting. Haruka grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a close family with her parents, her younger brother, and her sister. She was good at school, especially in math and science, and she also discovered her love for ballet when she was 12. She worked hard at everything she did and made her family very proud. When she moved to Austin for college, she quickly made new friends and even performed in university plays. But on the night of April 3rd, 2016, something terrible happened. That evening, Haruka finished her dance class and sent a message to her friends saying she was walking back to her dorm. It was around 9:30 p.m., already dark outside, but she never made it home. When she didn't show up to class the next day and no one could reach her, her friends and teachers got worried. Police were called and they began searching the area. The next day, searchers found a horrible scene. Haruka's body was discovered by a creek on campus. She had been attacked, strangled with a rope, and hidden under leaves and rocks. Police also found a hammer and a pair of glasses nearby. It was clear someone had hurt her very badly and then tried to hide what they did. At first, no one knew who did it, but security cameras on campus showed a young man riding a bike and carrying a backpack near the area where Haruka disappeared. The police released the video to the public, hoping someone would recognize him. Around the same time, firefighters reported a suspicious fire at a storage unit. Inside, they found a homeless teenager named Mikhail Kreiner. He was just 17 and had been living on the streets. When police searched his things, they found some of Haruka's belongings, including her laptop and other items. They also found the bike from the video. After this evidence, they arrested him and charged him with murder. He had a very hard life. His mother used drugs and alcohol when she was pregnant, and he was born with health problems. He was taken away from her at birth and grew up in foster homes and with his grandmother. He had mental health problems too, including autism, depression, and schizophrenia, but he never got proper help. By the time he was 16, his grandmother told him to leave, and he became homeless. Even though his childhood was tragic, the evidence showed he knew what he was doing when he attacked Haruka. The cameras showed him following her, and his glasses were found next to her body. Witnesses said he even tried to burn her belongings afterward. The trial took a long time because of problems with the DNA evidence. But in July 2018, a jury found him guilty of murdering Haruka. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. During the trial, Haruka's father spoke about how much she was loved and how much she is missed. Haruka's death shocked the entire community. Students held memorials for her, and the university spent millions of dollars to improve campus safety, adding more lights, cameras, and patrol officers. Haruka was remembered as a beautiful, kind, and ambitious young woman who touched many lives in her short time. Her family and friends continued to visit the place where she was found, leaving flowers every year on the anniversary of her death. Before and after photos of Centralia, Pennsylvania. It's been abandoned for over 60 years due to non-stop fires that happened in the underground coal mines. White House Farm Family Photo, 1985. This photo seems to show a happy family, a mother, her daughter, and her twin boys. But just months after it was taken, this family was wiped out in a shocking massacre that stunned England. Jeremy Bamber was born in London, England, on January 13, 1961. Not long after his birth, his mother gave him up for adoption. When he was 6 months old, he was adopted by Neville and June Bamber. They lived at White House Farm near a small village called Tolleshunt Darcy in Essex, about an hour and a half northeast of London. The farm was large, about 300 acres, and they also ran a campground. Neville had worked as a pilot and later as a magistrate, while June struggled with depression and often stayed in mental health hospitals. Before adopting Jeremy, they had already adopted a girl named Sheila Caffell. Sheila got married in 1977 and had twin sons, Nicholas and Daniel, in 1979. She divorced in 1982 and began to have serious mental health problems, including paranoia and strange behavior. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia and sometimes thought people were trying to kill her. She was treated in hospital several times. Sheila's two boys mostly lived with their father. Sheila and her adoptive mother June did not get along. June was very strict and religious. She believed Sheila's mental illness was caused by the devil and even called her the devil's child. In March 1985, Sheila had a serious episode and was sent to a hospital because she thought she was speaking to God and believed people were out to hurt her. Jeremy, meanwhile, went to boarding school but did not do well. After leaving school, he traveled to Australia and New Zealand. Some people said he bragged about committing crimes during his travels. When he came back to England, he worked small jobs before helping out on the farm. He moved into a house about 3 miles from his parents' home. In 1983, Jeremy met a woman named Julie Mugford, and they started dating. On August 4th, 1985, Sheila and her 2 sons came to spend the week at White House Farm. The next day, 2 workers saw Sheila and said she seemed happy. Jeremy was at the farm and suggested that Sheila put her sons in foster care. He said she did not seem upset about this. While there, Jeremy loaded a rifle, saying he heard rabbits, but didn't fire it. He left it on the kitchen table with some bullets nearby, and left around 9:30 p.m. That night, some strange things happened. Neville got a phone call and hung up quickly, which was unusual. Later, June's sister spoke to June and Sheila on the phone and noticed that Sheila was very quiet. At about 3:20 a.m. on August 7th, Jeremy called the police. He said his father had just called him, saying Sheila had gone crazy and had a gun, but the call was cut off. Jeremy drove to the farmhouse, arriving just after the police. The police thought they saw someone moving in a bedroom, so they waited outside for hours, thinking Sheila was armed. They tried to talk to her with a loudspeaker, but got no response. When the police finally entered the house, they found all 5 family members dead. Neville was in the kitchen. June was near the bedroom door. Sheila was next to her with a rifle on her body, and the 2 boys were in their beds. Everyone had been shot at close range with the rifle. There were signs of a struggle in the kitchen, and Neville appeared to have fought back before being killed. At first, the police believed Sheila had killed her family, but 3 days later, a cousin found a silencer in the house with blood on it. Tests suggested the blood might have come from Sheila, or a mix of Neville and June. Then, on September 7th, Julie Mugford told police that Jeremy had planned to kill his family. She said he told her about it before and wanted the money he would inherit. She only came forward after learning Jeremy was cheating on her and after he allegedly hit her. In return for her testimony, her own legal troubles were dropped. Jeremy was arrested and put on trial in October 1986. The prosecution said he killed everyone and staged it to look like Sheila had done it. They believed he left through a window and rode a bicycle home. On October 28th, Jeremy was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. To this day, the case is debated. Many believe he is guilty, while others think Sheila killed the family. Some even believe the police mishandled evidence or made mistakes. In the end, while Jeremy probably committed the murders, poor police work and unclear evidence have left questions that may never be answered. Rescue workers at the scene of the wrecked Pantglas Junior School at Aberfan, South Wales, where a coal tip collapsed, killing over 190 children and their teachers. This haunting image looks like a crude carving, messy, almost senseless. But what you're seeing is the aftermath of something unthinkable, marked onto the body of a girl who had placed her trust in the wrong people. The words were burned into her stomach, not by strangers, but by those she lived with every day. This is the story of the murder of Sylvia Likens, one of the most shocking cases in American history. Many people were involved in her suffering and death, which makes it even more disturbing. There were 2 main families at the center of this story, the Banaszewskis and the Likens, and also some kids from the neighborhood. By 1965, Gertrude Banaszewski was 36 years old. Even though she was still young, she looked much older because of her hard life. She had been divorced twice, had 7 children, and suffered 6 miscarriages. All of her relationships had been abusive. She was raising her children alone. She was poor, depressed, and sick with asthma. The Banaszewski family lived at 3850 East New York Street in Indianapolis. Their house was very poor and dirty. There was no stove, only enough beds for half of them, and they mostly ate bread, crackers, and sometimes soup when they could make it. The 8 people in the house were Gertrude and her children: Paula, 17, Stephanie, John Jr., 12, Marie, 11, Shirley, 10, James, 8, and baby Dennis. The Likens family was also very poor. Lester and Betty Likens had 5 children. The oldest were 18-year-old twins Daniel and Diana. Then there was Sylvia, who was 16, and another pair of twins, Benny and Jenny, who were 15. Jenny had polio when she was little and had to wear a metal brace on her leg, which made her limp. Sylvia was very protective of her sister because of this. In July 1965, Betty Likens was arrested for shoplifting and sent to jail. That left Sylvia and Jenny on their own. Soon they met their school friend Paula Banaszewski and went to her house to listen to music. When Gertrude heard about their situation, she offered to let Sylvia and Jenny stay at her house until their parents could take care of them again. When Lester Likens found his daughters at Gertrude's house, he made a deal with her. He said he would pay her $20 a week to care for Sylvia and Jenny while he traveled with the carnival. But he didn't take time to look around Gertrude's house or see how she and her family lived. Maybe if he had, he would have chosen differently. At first, things were fine. Sylvia and Jenny enjoyed playing with the other kids and singing along to Beatles records. But then the $20 payment from Lester was late, and that was when the abuse began. When the money didn't arrive on time, Gertrude became angry. She screamed at the girls, called them names, and beat them with a heavy wooden paddle. Later, when the girls used some of their own money from collecting bottles to buy candy, Gertrude accused them of stealing and beat Sylvia again. Another time, she punished Sylvia for eating too much at a church social by making her eat a hot dog covered with spices and condiments until she vomited, and then she forced her to eat that too. At first, it was mostly beatings and humiliations, but as weeks passed, it got much worse. Lester and Betty visited their daughters twice during this time, but the girls didn't tell them what was happening, probably because they were scared of what Gertrude might do. One day, Gertrude heard Sylvia talking about how she had once laid in bed with a boy, though nothing serious happened. Gertrude became furious. She called Sylvia a street worker, accused her of being pregnant, and started to kick her in the most sensitive areas. She even involved the neighborhood kids and her own children in this, encouraging them to hurt Sylvia. Paula, Gertrude's oldest daughter, was pregnant herself and may have felt jealous or angry at Sylvia, so she joined in too. Even neighborhood boys like Coy Hubbard and Richard Hobbs came to the house to beat Sylvia, throw her around, and practice judo on her. Soon, Sylvia became like a toy for everyone in the house. They burned her with cigarettes, threw her down the stairs, and also made her do some things I'd rather not talk about. Once, she needed a gym suit for school and stole one because Gertrude wouldn't buy it. As punishment, Gertrude burned Sylvia's fingers with matches, leaving them blistered. Neighbors even witnessed some of this. One woman, Phyllis Vermillion, noticed Sylvia had a black eye and saw Paula pour hot water on her face, but she didn't contact the police. By October, Sylvia was so weak and broken that she wet the bed. Gertrude decided she was no longer fit to be upstairs and moved her to the filthy basement. From then on, Sylvia was kept in the basement. They didn't even give her any clothes. She was sleeping on the floor in her own waste, and often tied up. They hardly fed her, and when they did, it was spoiled food or garbage. Sometimes they made her eat and drink waste. One day, Gertrude made Sylvia write a fake letter to her parents, saying she had run away and gotten into trouble with boys. Then they decided to kill her and dump her body somewhere. Sylvia overheard this and tried to escape, but she was caught and beaten again. On October 25th, Gertrude and the kids branded her stomach with a hot sewing needle, carving these words. They also tried to burn an S or 3 shape with a heated hook. That night, Sylvia tried to crawl up the stairs and cried out for help, but nobody came. The next morning, she could barely speak or move. She didn't even know the alphabet anymore when asked. That afternoon, she died. Stephanie, one of Gertrude's daughters, tried to perform CPR, but it was too late. Gertrude at first didn't believe she was dead and hid her body, calling her a faker. But when she realized Sylvia was gone, she dumped her body on a dirty mattress and called the police, pretending Sylvia had returned home in that state. When the police arrived, everyone stuck to the fake story, except Jenny. When Gertrude wasn't listening, Jenny whispered to the officers, "Get me out of here, and I'll tell you everything." The police arrested Gertrude and the others. Sylvia's autopsy showed more than 150 injuries in different stages of healing. She was covered in burns, cuts, bruises, and sores. Her skin was peeling from the salt and hot water, she was emaciated, and her fingernails were broken backward from clawing at the floor. Her lips were bitten through from pain. Gertrude, Paula, John Jr., Richard Hobbs, and Coy Hubbard were all charged. Gertrude was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Paula was found guilty of second-degree murder but released after 6 years. The boys were found guilty of manslaughter and served under 2 years each. Gertrude became a model prisoner and was released in 1985. She never admitted what she had done, blaming the others and claiming she couldn't remember because of her asthma medicine. She died of cancer in 1990. Jenny Likens grew up and had a family, but she was deeply traumatized and needed medication for anxiety for the rest of her life. She died in 2004. What makes it so terrifying is how many ordinary people joined in. These weren't monsters or strangers. They were family members, classmates, and neighbors who slowly got caught up in cruelty. CCTV footage captured Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed arriving at the Ritz Hotel in Paris on August 30th, 1997, moments before the tragic car crash that would shock the world. The images show the couple together, unaware that their evening would end in disaster. Ray Rivera, 2006. On a spring evening in May 2006, 32-year-old Ray Rivera ran out of his Baltimore home and never came back. He got a phone call and rushed out wearing flip-flops. He left his keys and never returned. A week later, his body was found in a locked conference room under the Belvedere Hotel. It looked like he had fallen through the roof from above, but the way his body landed and the damage around him didn't make sense. Strangely, his cell phone and glasses were nearby and completely unbroken. Ray's death is still a mystery, almost 20 years later. No one has been charged, and no clear answers have been found. Ray had moved to Baltimore in 2004 with his wife Allison. They came from California because Ray's friend Porter Stansberry offered him a job at his financial newsletter company. But Ray's dream was to be a filmmaker. By 2006, he was planning to go back to Los Angeles to write full-time. He was excited about the future, planning trips and thinking about starting a family. Then something strange happened. On May 15th, around 1 a.m., Ray and Allison were woken up by their home alarm. Ray grabbed a baseball bat and searched the house, but no one was there. The next night, the alarm went off again. This time, a window downstairs looked like someone had tried to open it. Ray was very shaken. Allison later said she believed these events were connected to what happened next. On May 16th, Allison went out of town for work. That evening, a friend named Claudia stayed at their house. Around 6 p.m., Claudia heard the phone ring. Ray answered, said "oh," and rushed out of the house wearing flip-flops. He left his keys behind and never came back. Allison couldn't reach him by phone and became worried. The next morning, she reported him missing. Friends and family flew in to help search for him. 6 days later, Allison's parents found Ray's car parked near the Belvedere Hotel. The parking ticket on it was dated the day he disappeared. People began searching the hotel and nearby areas, but didn't find anything right away. 2 days after that, some of Ray's co-workers spotted something strange on the roof of a small part of the hotel. They saw flip-flops, a phone, glasses, and keys next to a hole in the metal roof. Below that hole, in a locked conference room, was Ray's body. His injuries matched a fall from a height, but the scene didn't make sense. The room was hard to reach, and no one saw him enter the building. Security cameras were off that night, and despite falling, his phone and glasses were not broken. One detective even said the scene looked staged. A note was later found at home behind Ray's computer. It was sealed in plastic and full of strange references to movies, secret societies, and the phrase, "Whom virtue unites, death will not separate." It was not a clear goodbye note. The FBI said it didn't seem like a typical S-note either. Some people, including the police, they thought his note and his behavior in the days before showed stress. But his wife and family strongly disagreed. Other people think he was murdered. possibly because of something he found out at work. Ray used to work at Stansberry's company, which was under investigation for financial wrongdoing at the time. The call that made Ray run out came from the company's switchboard, but no one there admitted making the call. After his body was found, employees were reportedly told not to talk about the case. Some have also wondered if his death was linked to secret societies because of the strange note. Others think it was an accident, that he somehow fell while exploring the building. But none of these theories have been proven. The way Ray's body was found, in a place he couldn't easily reach, with belongings that looked carefully placed, has led many, including his wife, to believe he was killed and the scene was staged to look like something else. To this day, no one knows who called Ray that night, why he ran out, or exactly how he ended up dead under the Belvedere Hotel. His wife, Allison, still believes someone out there knows what really happened. Madame Debenche's bedroom. At first glance, this old photo of a bedroom, taken in the early 1900s, looks like it shows nothing more than a normal Paris apartment. The room is full of heavy furniture and decorated in the style of that time. Floral wallpaper, thick curtains, and a big bed with a fancy wooden frame that takes up most of the space. The blankets are messy, and a few chairs are slightly out of place, but nothing seems very strange. But when you look more closely, you start to feel uneasy. A chair has fallen over, and the neatness of the room is disturbed in small ways. The bed covers look oddly messy, and there is a dark stain on the white sheets where someone once lay. It's only when you learn what is just outside the frame of the photo, behind the bed, on the floor, that the full story becomes clear: the dead body of the woman who lived here. In May 1903, police in Paris started using photos to record evidence, something very new at the time. While this photo shows the quiet and strange calm of the room before the full truth is revealed, another photo taken just a moment later shows the terrible reality that is out of sight here. Obviously, I cannot show that. This bedroom is one of the earliest recorded crime scenes, and the woman who lived and died here is one of the first murder victims ever captured in a forensic photograph.